and welcome. I'm Melinda Akinlami. Tonight, EFCC operatives mark properties linked to former Abia State Governor Orji Uzor Kalu forfeited to the federal government. Sun newspapers fault EFCC's action, insists it's not affected by court order. President Buhari condemns alleged killing of 4 Action Aid Against Hunger workers abducted by insurgents near Damasak, Borno State in July this year. A group under the aegis of Congress of Northern Nigeria Christians demand release of abducted schoolgirl Leah Sharibu from Boko Haram captivity before Christmas. And Sudan's former president Omar al-Bashir to spend 2 years in a social reform facility for corruption.
On Business News Tonight, Transmission Company of Nigeria asks Niger, Togo and Republic of Benin to pay up outstanding power bills running into millions of dollars.
On Sports News tonight, Bournemouth stunned Chelsea FC at Stamford Bridge to end their 5-game losing streak. Of the losses, Chelsea's third in their last 4 EPL games.
Barely 2 weeks after a federal high court in Lagos sentenced former Abia State Governor Orji Uzor Kalu to 12 years in prison over a 7.1 billion naira fraud, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, marked properties belonging to the former governor in some parts of Lagos today. The anti-graft agency explained in a statement that the marking is to ensure that the properties are not dissipated. Justice Mohammed Idris of the Federal High Court in Ikoyi, Lagos, had on December the 5th ordered that former governor's property and the company, that's Slock Nigeria Limited, be wound up and all assets forfeited to the federal government. Mr. Kalu, who is the senator representing Abia North in the National Assembly, was arraigned alongside his company, Slock Nigeria Limited, and his director of finance and accounts at the Abia State Government House, Mr. Ude Udogu, over an amended 39-count charge bordering on conspiracy and diverting the sum of 7.65 billion naira belonging to the state government. Justice Idris found the defendants guilty on all counts and sentenced Mr. Kalu to 12 years in prison and Mr. Udogu to 10 years. In the meantime, the management of the Sun newspaper has distanced itself from the legal battle between the former governor of Abia State and the EFCC. The publication says it frowns at the unusual visit by EFCC operatives and some armed policemen to its Lagos office today, where they wrote on the wall that everyone should keep off from the publishing house. The newspaper house says it's on record that there is a pending appeal at the Supreme Court wherein the Sun Publishing Limited appealed against the judgment delivered by the Court of Appeal on the interim forfeiture order made against it by a federal high court in 2007 based on ex parte proceeding. The Sun newspaper also explained that it was not a party to the case between EFCC versus Orji Uzor Kalu and 2 others. Therefore, the judgment should not lead to an attempt to seal the publishing company. The statement insists that the Sun Publishing Limited is on an ongoing corporate limited company and its shares are owned by various individuals apart from Senator Kalu. To security matters now, some internally displaced persons who fled from herdsmen attacks in their communities last year have vowed to protest against the federal government's planned ranching program for herders because they are yet to receive any respite and intervention almost 2 years after their displacements. The displaced persons say they may have to seek legal redress if nothing is done to ease their suffering. But the state government and the police say efforts are on to address the security breaches from the border community with Nasarawa State before they can be allowed to return to their settlements.
Temporary learning spaces. As clearly written on this signboard, is all internally displaced persons at the Abagana camp in Makurdi, Benue State have had to make do with since they were displaced from their schools in January 2018. 12-years-old Gandepu Aosu, a JSS2 student, feels the need to return home for better education.
Back in my village, I have a better education than here in IDP camp. I beg government to return us from our village so that I will have a better education.
Another displaced person, Gawan Yoravier, recounts the story of how he was attacked while harvesting sesame seeds on his farm.
As I went to a farm, I see them, 3 of them. So they tell them, say, this is what they do, no good. Now they finish all our problem here. Now I come to remove benefit, then they scatter the benefit, no good.
The people say the challenges are enormous, and if nothing is done, they will stage a protest and consider seeking legal redress.
If the government will hear me, I will protest, because the lawyers are there, everybody is here to support me. If the government will, if they want me, I will protest, because I'm not happy staying in this kind of a place for over 2 years, getting to 2 years.
We can't stop the federal government from doing that, but before then, we want the federal government to resettle us first, before settling those who attacked us.
The leadership of Mieti Ala Cattle Breeders Association, on their part, wants proper enlightenment for concerned groups on the need to accept one another for peaceful coexistence.
To carry out a sensitization across the state, particularly to the herders, for them to understand the dividends and the attention of the state government. But still, up to now, due to, let me say, geographical locations and ethnicity, in fact, background, let me say, educational background, most of the herders are completely ignorant of ranching.
To address both security and resettlement challenges, the Commissioner of Police and the State Deputy Governor speak on how to approach the issues.
We have woken the DPOs up. I've directed them to extend patrols and surveillance to those places, ensure that they utilize the community policing strategy to bring the two neighboring communities together, so that if there is any rancor, it can easily be sorted out before it escalates.
We have agreed that we will take it a little further. We are going to go to Nasarawa State to put fine touches into arrangements that will have to be made and security personnel put in appropriate places.
The need to resettle the over 600,000 displaced persons is now considered a priority, even though the main cause of the conflict, which is the lush coastal lands with green grass on the riverbanks, remain a challenge.
Staying with security issues, the president has condemned the alleged execution of aid workers abducted by insurgents near Damasak, Borno State in July last year. President Muhammadu Buhari says he's sad over the death of 4 volunteers working with French aid group Action Against Hunger. Their death was announced by the aid group on Friday. It said terrorist organization ISWAP had claimed responsibility for executing 4 hostages who had been held since July. According to Action Against Hunger, the 4 were among 6 people held by the terrorists for about 5 months. It adds that one of its staff and 2 drivers were amongst those killed. The president's condemnation was part of a statement released by his spokesperson, Mr. Femi Adesina, where he also commiserated with their family and loved ones. Last July, an employee of Action Against Hunger, 2 drivers and 3 health ministry personnel were kidnapped while delivering humanitarian aid to extremely vulnerable people in Borno State. The first hostage to be executed from the group was killed at the end of September this year. Action Against Hunger says it condemns the latest killing and deeply regrets that calls for the release of the hostages have not been acted upon. Meanwhile, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Nigeria says it's deeply saddened and outraged by the news of the tragic killing of 4 aid workers. Mr. Kalon is pleading for the release of the only lady still held in their captivity, Ms. Taku, whose whereabouts still remains unknown. He called for the immediate release of Alice Loksa, a nurse and a mother who was abducted during an attack in Iran in March 2018. He's also asking all armed actors to respect the principles of humanity, neutrality and independence which guide humanitarian assistance and to ensure the protection of aid workers. Still in the northeast, the Congress of Northern Nigeria Christians, CNNC, is asking the federal government to renew negotiations for the release of Leah Sharibu, the last Dapchi schoolgirl abducted by insurgents in Yobe State last year. The group says the release of Ms. Sharibu before Christmas will be the best gift they will expect from the federal government and security agencies. The request was made during a meeting of the association in Kaduna State, which has members from 19 northern states and the Federal Capital Territory. The group laments that nothing much has been heard about her whereabouts or even efforts being made by security agencies to secure her release since the abduction in February 2018.
Will appeal to the government is that they have the capacity to do more than that to release this young girl. So we appeal that before the end of this year, before Christmas, let Leah Sharibu be released. We are praying and we are appealing that all those in authority should make sure that this girl is released and that all Nigerians will celebrate her release because she's innocent, it's because of her faith, and to promote religious harmony, it's good that Leah is released. Any adult will feel that a young child like that, away from home, and she's alive, we hope. It's very painful, and we can, if we are in their shoes, as parents too, we have children, we know how it is. Even going away for 1 week is terrible. How about, it's almost a year now. So I really sympathize with the parents. We pray for them that their faith will be strengthened and trusting God that Leah will be released. And that's our hope.
About 1,500 dry season farmers in Raba community in Mokwa local government area of Niger State have received farm inputs from the federal government under the Value Chain Development Program of the International Food and Agricultural Development, IFAD. The intervention is part of efforts to promote dry season farming and ensure food security in the country. Raba is one of the communities in Niger State mostly affected by flooding.
This is Raba community in Mokwa local government area of Niger State. It's located on the brinks of the River Niger and may be considered blessed because of the availability of water for fishing. However, crop farmers often suffer during the rainy season, a situation which has forced many residents in the area to adopt dry season farming method. The federal government is providing assistance to make this possible.
The federal government of Nigeria, partnering with the state governments under the IFAD Value Chain Development Project, wants to support farmers in order to boost agriculture, to address the issue of food security, and therefore farmers are being supported under matching grant on this project.
We really want to teach them and to encourage them to embrace dry season farming. And for rice in particular, it's extremely important, not only for rice, but a number of other crops. But for this particular initiative, we are concentrating on rice and on cassava.
The intervention is believed to have remarkable impact on agricultural activities in the state.
Nigerians are already embracing dry season farming, and we are moving forward. Presently, we have a target production of about 6.5 metric tons per hectare for rice in Niger State. Our intention is to move forward. Our target by 2020 is to have at least a minimum of 8 metric tons per hectare.
The farmers are also happy about the donation.
With the advance of this program, we can suspend the wet season farming and go for irrigation farming. And so we thank for the federal government for the supporting of these items.
The expectation of the government is that farmers in Nigeria, especially those located along the floodplains, will embrace irrigation farming to enable them increase their yields. If this succeeds, the fears usually nursed by farmers in Raba community during rainy season may be a thing of the past.
In part two, after the break, the debate on the closure of Nigeria's land borders by the federal government continues. Find out more, what more is being said about the matter.